Hey guys, welcome back to a new video. In this video I'll be showing you guys how you can build a project with a Next.js React frontend and a Flask backend. Approximately 2 years ago I made a video similar to the one you're watching right now explaining how to do the same thing. However, in that video I was using Create React App to build the frontend, which now has been taken off of React's official documentation, and developers are encouraged to use frameworks like Next.js to create their React projects. And in this video, I'll go over how you can set one up. Now, before I get started, I want to go over a little bit about Next.js and why it's better to use Next.js. So Next.js, it offers several advantages. It provides built-in server-side rendering and static site generation, resulting in faster page loads and better search engine optimization. And it also has file-based routing, which makes managing routes a lot simpler. Okay, and Next.js seamlessly integrates with React, making it really easy to adopt its advanced features while leveraging existing React components. And overall, it just combines the benefits of React with improved performance, simplified routing, and effortless API integration. So now that you guys have a bit of information on what Next.js is, let's begin. Alright, so now I'm going to be showing you how you can set up your front end and back end. Now, before setting up the front end and back end, we need the folders set up. So what I've done here is inside of a folder called Next.js Flask, I've opened up my code editor, and for those of you that may be unfamiliar with this, I'm using VS Code. So first off, I'm going to create a folder called server, and this will contain everything that we need for our Flask backend. Then I'm going to create a folder called client, which will contain our Next.js frontend, okay? And I'm going to first go ahead and do the server setup because that is, it does contain less steps, and then I'm going to show you how you can set up your client. So here I'm just going to do cd server inside of my terminal, and I am on Mac, so my commands for those of you that are using Windows may be different. So if you're using Windows, I'm just going to have the commands for the Windows operating system on the screen. And for right now, I'll just type up everything that we need. And first off, we're going to need a virtual environment. So to create a virtual environment, all I'm going to do is python3-m venv, which is the name of the library, and then the name of our virtual environment, which is just going to be venv, okay? And if you give it a few seconds, it's going to create the virtual environment, and if I expand server, you can see that it has been created. And next, we're going to need to activate the environment. So to activate the environment on Mac, you would just do source venv, which is the name of our environment, bin activate. And for Windows, I'll have both of these commands on the screen shown up for you as well. So once we've activated our virtual environment, we're going to need a server file where we're going to write all of our Flask code in. So to do that, I'm just going to do touch server.py to create a server file. And if you guys aren't too familiar with commands, you can just add a file by clicking this right here, okay? And here you can see that our server.py file has been created, and we're going to write all of our Flask code in Python inside of this file right here. And next we're going to need to install Flask. So to install Flask, I'm just going to do pip3 install Flask. Again, for Windows, it's going to be a different command, so I'll have that on the screen as well. So if you give it a few seconds, it's going to finish installing Flask, okay? And now that we've installed the dependencies that we need for our backend, let's go ahead and do the same for our frontend. So I opened up a new terminal, and I'm in the server directory, but I need to be in the client directory. So to get into the client directory, I'll just do cd ... and then I'll do cd client to enter into client. And to create the Next.js app, this is what's different with Next.js. So previously we would just do npx create react app and then hit period to create it inside of the client directory. But with Next.js, instead of doing create react app, you'll be doing npx create next app and period. And I'm doing period so that it's created inside of this client directory right here. So I'll hit enter, and it's going to say need to install the following packages, create next app. Okay to proceed. Just hit enter here, and it's going to ask if you would like to use TypeScript with this project. And I'm just going to go ahead and say yes. If you guys would want to stick to using traditional JavaScript, that's completely fine as well. So I'll hit yes. And would you like to use ESLint with this project? Yes. Would you like to use Tailwind CSS? Yes. Source directory. This is up to you. It's fine if you either put yes or no. I'm just going to put no so that I can make it a lot more simpler. And app router, I'm going to click no for this one. Basically, Next.js has a new routing system with this app directory, but currently with the majority of React apps that have been created with Next.js, a lot of them are using the pages router, and I'm sure a lot of you guys would find the pages router a lot easier to follow along with, so I'm just going to hit no, and it's fine if you really do either, but for the purpose of the video, I'm just going to do no for this option right here. And would you like to customize the default import alias? I'll just click no. And it's going to take a while to create the Next.js project, and to see if it's being created or not, you can also refer to this loading bar, or also expand this client directory. And I'll be back once Next.js has finished. All right, so Next.js has finished creating my React project right here. But before we do anything in React, I want to first set up our Flask backend, and then we can go ahead and make API calls to connect the two. So I'm going to exit out of this terminal since my project has been created. And inside of my server directory, where I have the server.py file, I'm just going to write some code to create a basic Flask app. So to do this, we're going to have to do from Flask import Flask, and I'm also going to import JSONified because we're going to need this to create an API route here. Next, I'm going to create a Flask app instance. So to do this, I'm just going to do app is equal to Flask underscore underscore name underscore underscore, and this is going to create a Flask app instance. So just call this app instance right here with comments to make it documented. And then we're going to need a way to run our app. So to run our app, we can just do if underscore underscore name is equal to underscore underscore main underscore underscore app dot run, and I'm going to put debug is equal to true to let the file know that we are in development mode. Only remove this right here if you're going to be deploying your application to production. Okay, I'm just putting debug is equal to true so that if we get any errors, we'll know right off the bat and we'll know what we need to fix. Okay, and next I'm going to create a app route. So for the app route, I'll just do app.route, I don't know, / API, and then home. And I'll put methods equal to get, define return home, and then return JSONify with some kind of JSON data. So I'll just do message hello world. Okay, so this is our Flask API that we built, and just to kind of iterate over what I've done, we created this app instance to create a Flask app. Then we have the code that we need to run our app, right? And then we have an app route which can be accessed at /API /home, and the only methods that we're going to be accepting at this route is the get method, or the get request. And then here, all we're doing is returning JSON, and we have a message that says hello world. So that's all that this app is doing, okay? And our goal is to display this message of hello world onto the front end. And that's basically going to show you how to pair the front end and back end together to create one application, okay? So now that we've gotten our server ready, we're just going to run it by doing Python 3 server.py, and for Windows it's a different command, so I'm going to put that on the screen as well. So I'll hit enter, and you can see that it says this is a development server, do not use it in production deployment. Alright, so if we go to 127.0.0.1 at port 5000, I'm just going to copy this link and paste it into my URL bar. It's going to say not found because we do not have a route set up for this endpoint. We only have a route set up for /API /home, right? So what we need to do is go over here and do /API and home, and we can see our JSON data right here. And this is exactly what we've returned. So what we're going to be doing in the coming clips is to basically use our Next.js frontend to fetch this backend route and grab the data that is sent from this route, which is this right here, and display it on the front end. And I'm going to be showing you how to do that. So for right now, we can, stop this backend server for now, and I'm just going to clear my terminal up, and I'll be showing you guys how you can set up everything on the client side. All right, so to begin with the client side setup, I'm going to open up my terminal, and instead of being in server, I'm going to first deactivate the environment for right now because we're not going to need to be playing around in our server directory quite yet. I'm going to go into client by doing cd:/client, and here this will put me inside of our client directory, as you can see right here, and I'm just going to do npm run dev so that I can have the client server running, and it's going to be running on localhost 3000. So what we're going to do is go here and type in localhost 3000 to access our front end and what it currently looks like. And for right now, all we're going to do is just get rid of all of this boilerplate code that Next.js provides us with so that we can start setting up our page to display this message right here. So what I'm going to do is inside of client, I'm going to go into pages, okay? And in pages, we're going to have 3 files and 1 folder called API. For this video, we're not going to need to mess around with this API folder, so don't worry about this. For app, this is just going to return our app, and then document.tsx, this is just going to have all the setup stuff for Next.js. But the main file that we're going to be working with is index.tsx, and here, all I'm going to do is remove all of this code, right, by doing Command A and Command X. For Windows, there are different commands, of course, on the keyboard, but just take out everything in this page and then do RFCE. Now, if you don't have the ES7 snippets extension over here, I'd recommend installing this right here, this extension ES7 plus React Redux, React Native snippets, so that you're able to do that RFCE snippet to generate a functional component. And if I go here, you can see that all we have is index. And next I'm going to go into globals.css and just remove all of this code right here. I'm just going to keep the Tailwind stuff because we chose to use Tailwind with our project. But here you can see that we have a white background now and we just have index, and our goal is to display hello world that's being called from this backend to the front end. So to first start off with a few things, I just want to import 2 things, and I'm going to import useEffect and useState, and I'll explain to you guys what these mean. But for right now, this is all that we need for our client side. Now, although we have the imports for our client side set up, there are 2 things that we need to sort out in our Python file. So the first thing is that we need to use Flask cores, and what cores allows us to do is to make requests from this Next.js server that's running right here to our Python API. Okay, and if we don't have cores, then it's going to give us a cross-origin issue. And to avoid that issue, we need cores so that we are able to allow other servers to make requests to this endpoint right here. Okay, I hope that's clear. So to set up cores, what we need to do is open up a new terminal, and instead of being in client, we're going to exit out and go into server. And here what I'm going to do is, again, since this is a new terminal, I need to activate my virtual environment. And here I'm just going to do pip3 install Flask cores, right? Flask -cores right there. Again, the commands for Windows, I've shown you that earlier, so you can just use those again. So now that we've successfully installed Flask cores, we're going to set it up by doing from Flask cores import cores. And now to actually apply this to our Python server, we're just going to do cores and then pass in our app instance, and that is it. Next, we need to set our port to be equal to 8080 instead of being the default 5000, which we had right over here. And if I refresh this, it's not going to work because we don't have our backend server running currently. But the next time that we do run it, we're going to have to access it at 8080 instead of 5000. And the reason that I'm doing 8080 is because I realized that as I was recording this, 5000 has an issue with cores when sending requests from our front end. So just set it to 8080 and everything else is going to be the same. Okay. So next I'm going to run my Python server. And to run our server, we're just going to do Python 3 server.py. And here you can now see that it's saying running on 127.0.0.1 8080. So here we're just going to go to the same URL, and instead of having 5000, we're going to have 8080. And you can see that the results are the exact same. So next, our goal is to retrieve this message here and log it to our console over here. All right. And once we've logged it, then we know that the API requests are working, and once they're working, we can just display them onto the web page. Okay, so to call this API, what I'm going to do is go here, and I'm going to first use useEffect. I'm not going to make any state variables just yet, but I'm going to use useEffect. And if you don't know what useEffect is, I have a video on it, which I will link in the top right-hand corner for you to check out so that you can understand what useEffect is. But essentially, it just allows us to create side effects in our functional components. And I've just set one up here, and I've passed in an empty array at the end so that this useEffect function only runs once on the initial render of the component. So what we need to do is do fetch, and then pass in our URL, which is going to be http://localhost 8080 API home. Now here's the thing, you can type in localhost or do 127.0.0.1. I'm just doing localhost, so it's easier for you guys to understand as well. And if I type in localhost over here, it's going to give us the same result. Essentially, localhost and 127.0.0.1 are the same thing, so it doesn't really matter. You can use them interchangeably. So I'll just do localhost 8080 API home. And then once we fetch it, right, I'm going to do a .then promise. We're going to get the response that we get from the request, put it into JSON, and then whatever data that we retrieve, we're just going to console.log that data. Okay, so now if we go to our front end, and as you can see, once I had saved my front end index.tsx file right here, you can see that the message was hello world, and this is a response from the fetch API. So we know that this message is being displayed. Now we need a way to display it on our web page. So to do that, we're going to create a state variable by doing const message and set message. And initially, we're going to have this set to loading. And if you don't know what useState is, I have a video on it as well, and I'll link it in the top right-hand corner for you guys to check out. So we're going to have the initial value of message to be loading, and once we've retrieved that data, which is going to be the message itself, we're going to set it to that data. But for right now, instead of displaying index, we're just going to display message. Okay, and right now it's going to display loading because that's what we have. But once we've fetched our API, we're going to get the data and just do set message to data. And here, it's not going to work because it's going to say found object with keys message. So what we're going to do is do data dot message, and this way it's only going to display the string of hello world. So here you can see that we have hello world showing up on our web page. Now if I go into my server and change hello world to being something else, like subscribe to the YouTube channel, and refresh this page, you can see that that message is popping up. So essentially what's happening is we first set up cores to allow this Next.js server to make requests to our API, and we have our port running on 8080, all right? And what we do is use the fetch API and call this endpoint, which is localhost 8080/API/home. And then whatever response that the API returns, we're going to put that into JSON, and then whatever data we retrieve, we're going to set that message data to access data.message and set that data.message to this message state variable. And what this is going to do internally is once we retrieve the data itself, so basically it's going to do, we're going to have message here, and message is initially set to loading, right? And then once data is retrieved, message is set to data.message, and in this case, our message value is subscribed to the YouTube channel. So if I refresh this, it's going to show that on the back end, and you can see it on the front end as well. Now if I change this again and say, like this video if this helped, and refresh this page, you can see that that is popping up, and for a split second you will see loading while the API is being fetched. So this is basically how you can make API calls to your Python server. Now I did show you how you can make requests, but it was a very simple example with just a string being displayed, and you may be wondering how you'd be able to do this with a collection, like a list or an array, right? So what I've done here is just added a people key and have a list of names, so Jack, Harry, and Barry. I wasn't being too creative with that, but just a list of people here, and all we're going to do is display their names onto this web page. And if you're wondering how I did this, all I did was simply have people and, have the list of names and put this right after the message, okay? It's very simple. And after this, what we're gonna do is access the front end here, and all we need to do is create a people variable. So currently, we're only setting the message to this message variable, right? But we need a people variable so we can set the people list right here. Because when we're fetching this API, we're getting all of this data right here, including people. So we just need to have a variable that will contain our people. So to do that, we can just do const people, set this to use state, and have this be an empty array, and we should be good. After this, we're just going to do set people to data.people, okay? And then I'm just going to do console.log data.people to make sure that we are retrieving our people. So if I go here, you can see that we retrieve Jack, Harry, and Barry, Jack, Harry, and Barry, like we were supposed to. And next what we're going to do is display them onto our web page. So to do that, it's fairly simple as well. I'm just going to remove this return statement for now. And I'll write a new one, and here I'm just going to have a parent div, and then this first div is just going to contain our message, and then our second div is going to be a mapping of our people to the divs. So we're just going to do people.map, and we're going to take person, and then take an index, and then do a div tag. I'm not sure why it's redlining here, but let's see. Incompatible. Okay. Whoops, okay. So what we need to do actually is this right here, people.map, and then person index, and then do div that, and then do person, and then set the key to this index. So do that. And here, if we refresh our page, you can see that we're displaying Jack, Harry, and Barry. And just to go and reiterate over what this is doing and what this is doing is first we're, calling our API, right, like I explained earlier, and getting all of this data right here. And then we're just going to access the message, which is going to be this right here, and set that to our message variable and redefine it from loading to contain whatever message that is being sent from the backend. And with people, all we're doing is creating a people array using useState and setting the people to that array, essentially. And we're just accessing the people by doing data.people, which can be accessed with this. And like before, you can change the names here. So if I put in my own name and go ahead and refresh this, you can see that my name is being rendered. So yeah, that's basically how it's working. I'm going to remove this console.log because we're not going to need it anymore. And what this is doing is basically grabbing every single person that's in this people array and mapping each element to a parameter called person, right, which is going to be whatever this is right here, okay, whatever is inside of these quotes, and displaying it. And then this index is basically keeping track of which index. So you know how in a list this would be 0, 1, 2. All this is doing is keeping track of the index, and we're just going to assign the index to this key attribute for div. And so once we do this, we're displaying every single person that is inside of our people array. So this is basically how you can set up a Next.js project, combine it with a Flask backend, and make calls to your backend API to retrieve and display data. Alright, so that is it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed and learned something, and if you did, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I apologize for the lack of uploads. I've just had school and recently it ended, so I'm going to be getting back into the groove of uploading. So stay tuned for more uploads. And if you have any sort of questions or comments or any issues you may have encountered when setting up this project, make sure to leave them in the comments below. And if you need to talk to me about anything, just feel free to email me and I will do my best to reply to you. So with that being said, hope you guys learned something, hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for the continued support, and as always, I will see you in the next video.